Welcome to the
hmm
Pulse on Human Design. I am super excited to have Dr. Eleanor here with us today. Eleanor is a big piece of the Bodygraph Chart platform. If you've been to our world at all, into our world at all, you have no doubt been introduced to her work. She does webinars and workshops with us and has authored, I don't know how many books, 13 of them with Ra. There's a lot going on here. So we are going to have a little conversation today about astrology and human design. Welcome.
hmm Thank you. Glad to be here with you.
Super exciting for me to get to spend some time with you today. So your work is you are an astrologist, you are the original human design person with Ra, and you are a PhD and tons of other things. Can you just tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are?
Well, I have seen auras since I was born,
Mm.
and I knew that in order to have credibility as any kind of professional, I needed a PhD.
Mm.
So my interest was always esoteric and scientific. So I went to University of Chicago in a social science department that integrated sociology, biology, psychology, and anthropology.
Wow.
And um, I studied with really great people. And it introduced me to the four worlds, which is mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical, which is what I teach and work with now and integrate into human design because people are complete, they're not partial.
Mm.
So we want to empower people to be whole.
Yes.
And so I got my license as a clinical psychologist. I did a postdoc and taught college for 3 years while I was in my studies. And then I went into practice and did training as a Jungian analyst. Um, and through the years, just kept studying.
Mm.
And uh, I had heard after I finished my PhD that astrology was the most scientific of esoteric disciplines.
Okay.
Being who I am, I decided to study astrology. And at the time, there was no computer programs on astrology. I'm
Right.
pretty old. So um, it, I thought it was the hardest thing I had ever tried to study. And I learned how to do charts by hand.
Mm.
And then I met Catherine de Jersey, my mentor astrologer, my best friend before my current best friend. Katie's no longer with us.
Oh.
And I one day she was standing in my kitchen. Um, she would visit, she lived in Chicago and she'd visit us in California and she'd probably stay for about a month and do readings for people. And one day I said to her, "So, Katie, when are you going to write your secrets down?" And she looked at me and she said, "Dear, don't push me." So I said to her, "Okay, Katie, I won't push you, but I will study astrology and I will learn enough to get your secrets." Now, why did I want her secrets? She told me the day, um, she told me I would move from Chicago to California. She said I'd move. I said, "Katie, you're crazy. It's the first time I've unpacked my books in 12 years. I'm not moving." I moved to California. It was home. I moved. Then she told me the day and time I met my husband, and
Wow.
we met in India at an ashram.
Wow.
So I wanted her secrets. I
Uh-huh.
studied astrology for about 10 years. And then I sat with Katie for a week and got her secrets. And before she died, she left me rights to all of her books, all of her charts, everything. Um, so I became an astrologer and I was also doing psychic stuff and studying the tree of life. I studied the tree of life for 20 years. And then I saw the Human Design mandala in the Mountain Astrologer magazine, and I knew what it was.
Mm.
I knew all of the pieces integrated into it. So I studied privately with Zeno, and then studied with Ra starting in 1996. Had a bit of a falling out with him, as most people did. And then he was destitute. So Ra asked if Marvin and I would help him and if he could come stay with us, bring his family, and if we would fill his schedule. I was in practice as a psychologist and doing many other things. And my husband is an MD. So we both had busy practices. We both worked at home. So we filled Ra's, we said, yes. We didn't want, I had broken contact with him. Ra was a scoundrel. If any of you don't know that, we loved him. We welcomed him many times into our home. And we knew he wasn't the most honest person in the world. But the message was really important.
Mm-hmm.
So we said yes. And he came, and within a week, he said, I want to be your business partner. I want you to be the professional arm of human design. And I want you to scientifically validate it.
Mm.
He asked Marvin to validate it medically, and he asked me to validate it statistically and psychologically. So I said no, Marvin said yes. I deferred to Marvin. It fell to me to do all the science, which I did. I checked out every single variable in human design. Many of them did not hold. And Ross said to me, I found 5 types, not 4. Ross said, I'm going to teach 4 types because my ego won't let me change. But you do the science, you teach the truth, you do 5 types.
Cool.
So I do 5 types, and they are statistically independent of each other.
Mm.
And I also tested the other matrices statistically, and they hold. So I'm about to publish 5 books that I wrote with Ra because I think it's very important for the human design community to have source material and to see what Ra said. And then I've written a commentary in all the books as to what held scientifically and what didn't. And for the health book, I had Marvin do the medical commentary. So I think the human design community deserves the truth and the statistics. So a few months ago, I did a webinar for Leanne, and I shared the statistics. And I think I may have shared the statistics on one of Giedis's websites. I mean, webinar.
Mm-hmm.
But there is the Bodygraph is absolutely reliable. Mm-hmm. I use the original Bodygraph that Ra was given, which is the sacred geometry. Mm. And to me, that's important. You know, other people use other ones for different reasons, and I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. But I always use the one I have the copyright to.
Nice.
So I was Ra's business partner. We taught the dream design and the multiple matrices that show what happens when we sleep and dream.
Nice.
And that gets integrated in my work into my readings. It would be nice for everybody to do that because it adds another piece. And also, what we're here to talk about today is the importance of astrology in the human design system. So, the human design chart is calculated based on astrology. And so, if you learn some very basics on astrology, like what the different signs mean, like Aries is fire, it's strong, it's initiating, whereas Pisces, ruled by Neptune, is very cloudy and amorphous and open and sort of like water. It flows. So if you begin to add into human design readings just the very basics of astrology, you can get a whole different nuance. So someone whose sun, for example, is in Aries versus someone whose sun is in Pisces are going to handle their orientation to the world in a different way. And we can use type, but if a Pisces, for example, would be a manifester or a manifesting generator, they would have a very different energy than someone who's an Aries manifester.
That makes sense.
So I did write a book on astrology.
So for I'm just going to read that title for our listeners on the podcast instead of the video here. It's Astrology Essentials, Understanding Charts.
And what I've done in it is I laid out many, many graphics in it because it's how I would have been able to learn astrology without struggling. To learn astrology, I basically spent 10 years every weekend. I took lessons with a private teacher, many private teachers, but I would spend my whole weekend studying astrology. I'm a little bit OCD.
But you did say
when it comes to knowledge.
I think it's the experience that many of us have with astrology that it seems so complicated when we start looking at it. It's like, oh my God, you've got these houses and you've got signs and you've got rising signs and all kinds of signs, it seems. It's a lot. So
it is a lot. I'm going to lay some of it out on Thursday, well, on the 31st of October. This isn't going to air till after that. But there will be in the Bodygraph portal my lecture on astrology. And I'm going to show how astrology connects to the design chart and how you can use it to bring another layer of information to your clients. And you asked me a question in the preview of the podcast about passive income. One thing we could do for human design people is to make a little chart of like a cheat sheet and offer that to them that they could give to their clients or sell for getting some passive income to teach people some astrology.
Yeah.
So that when they're looking at their chart, if they have their sun sign, for example, in Aries, they know that their energy is going to be different than someone who is a Gemini or a Cancer. Now, Aries is a strong sign. So is Cancer. But Aries is fire and Cancer is water.
Mm.
Different energy.
Mm-hmm.
So just adding that little piece, people could write a report
Mm-hmm.
using the new astrology, connecting to human design, and adding that nuance that would open a whole other avenue for reports.
Mm-hmm. And it's your feeling that this makes the human design, it just takes it up a whole other level for clients if you can mix the astrology and the human design together.
Yes, and also, for example, using the North and South node
Mm.
are important in life purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I always use Chiron in my body graph because Chiron in astrology is seen as bringing gifts.
Mm.
And if we look at Chiron and we look at it in conjunction with the North and South node and the Sun and Earth, we have a whole other dimension to tell people in terms of recognizing what their life purpose might be. So, for example, if someone's nodes are in, let's say, the 50-27 channel in some way, they're likely to wake up in the morning with a sense that they have a mission and they don't know what it is. But it's because of the nodes. So when I'm doing a reading, I'm always looking at the sun and the earth, of course, the moon, but I always do the dream designs because I taught that to Ra.
Yeah.
And so in the book that I'm getting ready to release that I wrote with Ra, we talk about the importance of looking at what's underneath the waking design, because we know that when we sleep, we go horizontal. And many people wake up in the morning with information that they didn't have when they went to sleep.
Yes.
One of my first clues, and I was so excited, it was 1999. And Ross said to me, the voice said that my dog is a mammal and he has the same design we have when we sleep. But you take it, I don't know what it means. I said, okay, Ra. I'm a Jungian analyst. I know about dreams. So I was sitting with two ladies in my yard. One was a manifesting generator who lost her sacral center when she slept.
Mm.
And the other one was a projector who gained the sacral center when she slept. So I said to one, you would go to sleep not knowing what the right action is, and you wake up and you know.
Mm-hmm.
She said, how did you know? And the other one, I said, you go to sleep thinking you know when you wake up not knowing.
Yeah.
How do you know? And I went into Ra and I said, Ra, the dream tells us something. And ultimately, we taught it. And he said, it's really important to look at the dream because it tells you something. So it's easy to do
Mm-hmm.
in design.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would say to somebody who just is looking at a human design chart is use your inner sense of yourself as more important than what anybody tells you about who you are.
Amen.
Because we're here to empower you.
Mhm.
and you know who you are.
Mhm.
And the design chart should be confirming that for you.
Yes. Yes.
So that's the way to use it.
Mhm.
And astrology adds that other little nuance into the piece.
Mhm. Because human design and astrology, I would assume, I know very little about astrology, but it is all about the nuances. Like I hate so much when people just say, well, you're a manifesting generator, so you're a projector, so you're a manifestor, so whatever. Like, doesn't matter. It's the nuances. And so in this conversation, there's a few things that I love. One thing is that you talk about specific planets that you always include. Now, I know that your readings are very, very robust, but I would love for our listeners to understand that something that we talk about in Bodygraph Chart World is that you don't have to, and in fact, you often don't serve your clients if you take every little piece of the design and fire hose someone with it. Like what people want to know when they come into a human design reading for the most part is, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And if you can do that with these, 4 or 5 little pieces that Dr. Eleanor just told us about, you're serving your client in a greater way than if you fire hose them with information they can't use. And you also talked about the dream chart. Like my brain is my sacral probably more than my brain is firing as you're speaking that, and I'm thinking what a powerful report that would be, because we all have. I just talked to someone this week, someone who's a coworker of mine. And he wakes up every morning. He goes to bed at night and he doesn't have words for what he means. And he has gate 43, but no 23. So I'm like, okay, so is that piece? And then he says he wakes up in the morning and the whole story is there. It's like paragraphs come out of him. It is the most beautiful thing to witness. So this
He
dream,
probably is sacrally defined when he sleeps.
he's sacrally defined when he's not sleeping. So I don't know.
Um, then something connects.
Yeah.
Something else is connecting.
Okay. Very cool.
But yeah, the Chiron, the North nodes, the sun, earth, and moon.
Mhm.
And then I'll look at where some of the other planets are.
Mhm.
When somebody has a slow moving planet that is strongly defined in their chart and connects up with their type,
Mhm.
that can be pretty powerful.
Mhm.
So knowing in my astrology book, I do have a table, many tables, but one of the key ones is this one, which shows all of the planets with keywords.
Mm.
So if you're not an astrologer and you learn the meaning of the planets, and then when you're doing a human design reading, it makes a difference
Mhm.
what planet is activating what gate,
Yeah.
because the gates are activated by planets.
Mhm.
Let's not forget that, by line. So when we are looking for, for example, I kept saying to Ra, I'm a manifester, but I'm not a manifester.
Because?
In my dream,
Okay.
I'm a generator.
Okay.
So I wait and I wait until I know because I know.
Mm.
And being able to say to somebody, use your intuition to time your chart.
Mm.
Don't rush. Don't think that that's all you are,
Mm.
because there are other layers in design that I've certainly delineated. But as a basic entry point, the basic chart can tell you a lot.
Mhm.
And using the astrology can add a lot to the nuance of how you manage your energy.
Mm.
Most people have some open centers or open channels or gates.
Yeah.
And most of the people I've worked with are pretty sensitive and they pick up energy from other people. So being able to know what belongs to you and what belongs to the outside world is part of what design is about.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been your experience also, Vickie?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I have 6 centers defined in my design. So I tend to, I think, emit more than what I'm taking in, but there are always things that we're taking in from the other for sure. And I think, I mean, our human conditioning for all of time has been that you can't be who you are. And human design is the ultimate permission slip to just be like, remember, this is who I came here to be. This is what I'm here for.
I always say, and some of my clients say I should have a button they could press. When you know what you know, because you know it,
Yes.
and nobody can tell you you don't know it, do not compromise. That is your soul, that is your spirit, that is who you are, and that is who you're here to be. And we don't want you to be anybody else.
Yeah. I love that. So I am going to let that bring us to a conclusion here today, because I think that's absolutely perfect thought to leave people with for the day. I so appreciate you being here. It has been an honor to speak with you and really interesting. I could talk to you for hours or have you talk to me for hours, but we don't have that kind of time this morning. So hopefully you
Right.
Would you tell people one more time the name of your book that you were recommending for layering the astrology with the human design and where they can find you online?
Astrology Essentials, Understanding Charts. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle. And I have another book called Cosmic Secrets, which talks about human design and integrates astrology and timeframes. So my website is Noble Energy Wellness. And I do a free webinar every Thursday at noon.
Oh, cool. And Dr. Elanor does a lot of webinars within the Bodygraph Chart community too. So make sure you're following along because she is a wealth of information. As you can tell just from the short podcast episode, there's so many more things that we could learn from her. So make sure that you follow in her world. And I thank you again for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.